So there's this guy at work that he's writing a comedy book, and I really like him. We share a same locker room, and anyway, so we were talking about books, and I told him my favorite one, which was Wake Up Sir by Jonathan Ames. I've read it a couple of times, I think. So it's about this writer that he slips outside of a company's premises and he sues them, and then he gets loads of money, so he hires himself a valet. Now, he's just a writer, he doesn't really have much of a schedule, so I think he lives with his stepfather, and basically the valet's initial job is just to help him avoid seeing his stepfather. Like, he'll just organize his life around his stepfather's sort of habits so that he can not see him as much as possible. And then later in the book, he goes to a writer's retreat, and it's quite an idyllic scene, and he meets loads of interesting people. Apparently it's similar to Jeeves and Wooster, basically, which was an old, I think, comedy book series, and it's heavily influenced by that, but I've never read Jeeves and Wooster. Anyway, so this guy at work, I recommend this book to him. I was like, yeah, it's my favorite book, you should read it. And then eventually he gets around to reading it, and he's like, yeah, I've taken it out of the library, I'm going to read it. Like, okay, great. Anyway, a month goes by, like, he doesn't mention anything. And then I bring it up to him, like, oh, how did you find that book? And he was like, yeah, I couldn't get past the first chapter, really. And I was just like, oh, my heart sunk. But I kept a straight face, and I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah, I didn't realise it was going to be so much like Jeeves and Wooster. And then I was like, yeah, I guess I've never read that, so I didn't know that. And he was like, yeah, it wasn't really for me. But he knew it was my favourite book, and he didn't sugarcoat his opinion of it, really, which I did respect, and I do like him. I find him quite funny. He told me once that he goes to the park and does sprints. He just goes to the park and sprints. Like, continually? Does he sprint around the park, or does he sprint up and down? I don't know. When I was younger, there was this tree outside of my window that was I believe it was a silver birch. And it was sort of the tallest tree around. So I lived in there was this kind of block of like 5 houses, not block, they were detached houses, but they were built at the same time. So they were kind of linked up. And this tree was sort of the tallest thing in the area. And in the evening, the sun would just hit it. Like, when it was low and it was kind of yellow, the sun would hit it in the summer. And I would always like sit on the edge of my bed and just look out and sort of daydream at this tree. And I really loved it. I loved that tree. And trees around it were getting cut down. I remember, like, one day the trees were just getting popped off. Like, I think people worry about them in the evening, like, if there's strong winds, they're going to fall on their house and roofs and stuff. And I think there were a couple of storms around that period. Anyway, I was doing my GCSEs. Sometimes I looked out the window and there was a guy up there just chopping it down. Couldn't believe it. So I moved into this new studio. It's in Shepherd's Bush. And it's a really nice area. I'm trying to record this before the light goes. I do need to clear up in here. I was going to buy one of those dustpan and brushes, but I didn't. I went to the shop before I started recording this, and I wanted to get some lip balm. My lips are really dry and I haven't brought any. But I forgot. I got a meal deal instead. But yeah, that move went really well. So I had a van with Daniel. he's now in a studio in Willesden Green, and because that's where he lives, so for him that's quite convenient. And I didn't really anticipate doing the podcast when I started sharing a studio with him. Although, like, it's yeah, I didn't paint for like 3 years after uni because after university I wanted nothing to do with painting really, and artwork, and I didn't really feel good about it. But gradually I've been coming back to it, and someone moved out of his studio, so he suggested to me like, oh, why don't you move in? Like, there's an extra space. And I was like, I remember when I was at uni, like it was sort of my dream to have my own studio. And then I forgot about that for a bit. And then when he suggested that, then I moved in there. And actually I would have these moments where I sort of couldn't believe that I was actually doing that. And having a third space is really important. Somewhere that's not just home or work really. Like having a third space you can go to just seems to open up some doors and feels like a creative space that you can make things in. Like if I go to one of these places and a studio and start making things, then something will inevitably come from it. Like you just have to put yourself in that position to then for your brain to start thinking really, because I think you can quite easily conform to your day-to-day and, you know, get up, go to work, come back, make sure you got dinner, lunch, food ready, plan for the next day, socialize, like 7 days in a week, and it's quite easy to drink and socialize in all of those. So, you know, and knowing when to like take an evening for yourself or a day for yourself and can be quite difficult actually. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah, so Daniel actually like massively helped me out because it was sort of one of those things that wasn't really on my mind to get a studio, but as soon as I did, I realized that, and as soon as I viewed it, I was like, wow, it all sort of came back to me that this, I sort of knew that throwing myself into a project is something that makes me feel really good and something I do need, and having that something to focus on outside of myself and my outside of myself is beneficial, but I think I lost it for quite a bit of time. Yeah, I'm still finding things on like Victoria, the hair artist that was in the studio. Like her hair is the hair is everywhere. Like in my stuff, I'm pretty sure I've re-inhabited this space with some hair. It is. I think I am gonna miss having those three, like Daniel and Victoria, those two, us three. And that was a really nice space as well. So it feels like we've all separated because she's found a place in somewhere else. I think somewhere like very central. I've come here, Daniel's gone to Willesden Green, we've all kind of separated, which it would be quite nice if we were all in. Like, this is very convenient for me, this building. So it would be nice if we were all in here, like all had our separate rooms. But yeah, the move. So I organized everything with like Enterprise, paid in advance, checked in, made sure like I knew that I wanted it all to run smoothly. I knew like things could go wrong. Was picking up the van at 8:30, getting to the studio at like 9, loading, and then I had to be at this studio at 11 a.m. to check in. And then we were going to go to Daniel's studio afterwards. But I woke up at I think like 6:30 just to be safe. Left the house at 8, walked to the van hire place. I got a double espresso and a pastry on the way. Got the double espresso at one place. They didn't have a chocolate croissant, So I went to another place, went in, and I saw something with chocolate. I was like, oh, what's in that? And she was like, oh, that's chocolate and banana. I was like, banana? Yeah, but it was really nice. It was a nice pastry. So I was eating that pastry, having the double espresso, like walking along to Enterprise. Got there, like was checking in, and then their system didn't recognize me with my address. Like it didn't go green, basically. All they needed was for the system to go green, and I was like suggesting other addresses and things like this because I've lived in different places. But no, the system was not going green. So I was just like, oh, and the day was like going downhill, and I was sort of thinking we would have to do this another time. But everything was arranged for this day, and I had to be out of the studio that day. Anyway, so they couldn't do it. So I called another place in Tottenham. And yeah, headed over there. They had a van, so I went over there, rushed over there. They had this big, like, it was called a Luton van, and it was like the biggest thing I'd ever driven. So yeah, checked around that, drove to the studio, we loaded up, couldn't open it actually. So got to the studio, was struggling to open the door. Then this guy outside like helped me. He was like outside smoking a cigarette, like working on building work in the area, and I was like, excuse me, I can't open the van that I've hired. And he was like, all right, yeah, let me have a go. You should like do this, and then yeah, we got it open. Actually, he couldn't open it, and then this old man that had a walking stick was like walking by, and he was like, oh, you just need to ready 1, 2, 3, and we all did it, and then he did it, and he was pretty impressed that he did it, I think. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to talk about the underground logo is blue and red, right? Now, quite tacky colours. The red phone box, quite tacky. Red buses, quite tacky. Red and blue, especially. I remember making a painting in, I think, GCSE art that was red and blue because they pop. Like, I'm talking about like cadmium red or something, cadmium red. And like just classic blue. And it's very sort of pop art, like, yeah, underground. But it's quite an ugly colour combination, I would say. And to have like our main underground tube system, red and blue. But apparently the blue in the underground symbol represents the River Thames. I was looking up. I was trying to find, so the red is obviously quite visible. And when I was writing visibility, the word, there's so many eyes in there. There's like four eyes. It felt like every time, yeah, after every letter, there's an I, except for at the end with T and Y. VISIBILITY. Visibility. And it could really be another I at the end. Visibility. E or an E, not a Y. But this morning is this is sort of the first time I'm speaking. This morning I went to the park, and because I can't run, the physio said don't run for like 2 months. And I'm supposed to be doing exercises, but they seem so boring. I haven't really looked at them. But I'm going to the park and kicking a ball about, like doing keepy uppies and stuff. Which is actually quite violent. Like, I had headphones on, so you can't really hear around. And I could just feel like the shock going through my body whenever my foot hit the ball. I feel like your body takes so much battering that you don't really notice, but it's very, very resilient. I'm staring at 2 green paintings in front of me. I seem to have used a lot of green. Like, this one doesn't have too much green in it. This one does. I do like green. A dark foresty green, like an evergreen green, and mixing it with the lime green and yellow. It's quite nice. And purple. I do need to get back to painting, really. I've been taking some breaks because of this. What I've been really getting into is Son of a Boy Dad podcast. With like Sasquatch and Francis Ellis, I think is his name. He seems really funny. But one of them like sings, like he goes up at the end of his sentences. So he's like, yeah, didn't mean to say that. This is all we do. And I've been listening to so much of it that it's like really hard for me not to do something similar. So I'm trying my best not to. But what I thought was quite interesting was they were going on a fishing week together. And one of them was like, yeah, we'll catch the fish. We'll take it to a restaurant nearby. Like they'll cook it for us. And I was thinking like, yeah, in America, like they would do that, wouldn't they? Like the restaurant would be happy to do that. It sort of feels like they're all in on it, really. Whereas in England, I feel like if you took a fish to a restaurant, they just would absolutely like be like, we're not cooking that. And I know there are a lot of like legal issues for that and like food safety things. But I think we seem to use those as an excuse just not to do something when we could do it. And I think when Americans come here, sometimes they seem a bit entitled, but actually it's not entitlement. It's just, I guess, their culture, really, how they are. They sort of expect us to be similar, and that's why I think we can appear quite cold and distant. I think this is a good practice in not going on my phone, because I record on my phone, and just then I really wanted to take a break. But then the camera angle would be different if I change it, so I can't. I think my screen time is averaging about 6 hours, 7 hours. Which is not too great. I'm scrolling a lot recently and I'm not really reading. I think it's very easy for me not to respect the paintings I do. I don't know what it is, but I seem to, after I finish making something, I seem to set it aside and just want to focus on the next thing. And the reason why I bring this up is because I'm looking at one of my older paintings that I've put on the wall because of the sound. I wanted the sound to be a bit better, so I thought putting paintings on the wall would make the room less echoey. But I'm looking at the painting there and I actually like it a lot more than I had the image in my mind of it. And actually seeing bits of it, yeah, it worked quite well. And I think, I'm not sure what it is, why I just like dispose of the painting and want to go on to the next thing, because I suppose I like trying to figure the next one out, and I know there are elements of this one that I didn't go so well, and I'm so conscious of like overworking a painting that I'm scared to almost like keep working on the same one. So it gets to a certain point where, like, I can tell with this painting, the bottom half is like good and the top half could be better. Like I could work on that more, which is something I will do after this, actually, seeing it. And that's what I find interesting about painting, is the almost like my mind suddenly like unlocks a new way of thinking about something that might be obvious to someone else, but things that are obvious to me might not be obvious to them. It's like a sort of pathway, and then you'll be looking at something and then suddenly something will click and a new way of moving on with an artwork becomes apparent. And I think it's quite easy to keep painting over paintings. Like I do that a lot because if I had unlimited canvas, then I would keep making a fresh one each time. But it's like, if I don't like a painting completely, but I would consider it done, then why not just paint over it? Like, I've got pictures of it and I need the canvas. So I think I need to try and find some other means to paint, because I can't keep buying canvas. Like, canvas is expensive. It really annoys me how everything gets marked up for artists. Like, I was looking at lights and these bright like LED lights, these daylight lights that I need for the studio. Like, I would be having, because the window is this side, so if I had a light this side, it would kind of level out that window, so I think the light would be more even. And essentially what they are is like workman lights. So from Screwfix, they're about £50, like these standalone lights. But if you look on artist websites, it's like £200 for these lights. So just they're exactly the same. But it seems to be that because you could be a hobby artist from like a rich family, that you are supposed to be able to afford this. And I don't know how all these paints are so expensive. I don't know how, like, going to places like Casa Arts or like, well, that's the main one, like Casa Arts, yeah, or like these I suppose independent shops, they're buying things that are expensive, so they sell them for higher prices. But I don't know how we're expected to be able to afford that. And having the costs of all the materials on your mind is sort of what inhibits you from almost playing quite freely. So I think a lot of people get stuck not being able to experiment fully because they don't want to waste materials. But I think wasting, that's why digitally, like, drawing on an iPad's quite good, is because you can just keep reiterating variations and moving on. But then you lose that tactile nature of a physical canvas and physical paint. And even though visually you can develop quite a few, I want to say patterns, but they're not patterns. Like, you can develop your own language, I guess, and new forms and new shapes and things that you want to take forward. It's very much in a visual 2D space, and it's not tactile. You can't grab it. So then taking that and putting it onto a physical canvas is very different. And I find that quite hard to work with. Like, how can you, like, my approach to a painting is very much like, I quite like a refresh. So I'll be working on a series and I'll have loose concepts in my mind and loose, like, feelings and things that I want this series to be and this series to develop. And I'm not really thinking about the viewer. Sort of, I am the person making it. And what I want is it to surprise me when I make it. Like, quite often paintings that don't surprise me, I feel quite disappointed in. And I just want to get rid of them. Like I don't want to keep them around. Like the paintings that I have around me, I think surprised me when I made them. Like for example, the only thing that I dislike about this is this brown thing that I did at the end, because it was very much like something I did in the mindset of like, I need to do something more. So before, I was working on this and flowing quite easily, quite freely, and introducing shapes and color combinations and things. Like the top of these triangles, is something I wouldn't have necessarily done before. So it was all feeling quite new, and this adding this element of the white over the top in a sharper shape, because sometimes I feel like my work can be too rounded. The shapes are all, like this one's kind of all, there are some rounded elements, and but I do like this one. What was I saying? I've lost it. Oh yeah, so then I got to a point where I should have stopped, but I had this white space and I thought I could continue in that same session. So I did this, and that's something that I think I will have to change before I consider this one like completely done. But this is my favorite one so far. And the reason why it's my favorite one is just because it's it was new to me. It felt new. I was doing this one I like because I think it just gives me something. I think it's quite good. And this one I think it's good, but it feels new to me. This one doesn't feel necessarily new. Yeah. I went through a phase of doing roulette about 2 years ago, because I thought if I covered, like, I was just doing red or black, and I was like, well, this basically, I was like, oh, I have a 50% chance of winning, and I did actually win. I think I was doing like £1 bets, and I got up to like £40, and then inevitably, like, I just lost. I lost it. So I gave up on that roulette. But I've started betting on the more obvious bet on football, because I would always get carried away with the odds. Like, the higher the odds, I was like, yeah, if I put £2 on this, I'll get £100. That sounds good. But alas, it's harder than it looks. Anyway, so I'm doing the most likely bet. So yesterday I'd put like an acron on and an acron is something that you basically, there are like 5 games on there that day, so you predict what, who's going to win in those matches. So on the most likely team to bet, that's all I did. And I was like, I put £5 on there, my winnings would have been like £112. Anyway, on the first match, like, it just didn't go my way. So that was the first match at 12:30. My hopes were dead. I think it was Fulham Aston Villa, and Fulham won. Even though Aston Villa are like 4th in the Premier League and Fulham are, I think, mid-table maybe. Let me read from my diary, because this has some of my. So this is 2017. 29th of March 2017. I may start writing down stuff that happens to me every day. This is me getting to grips with like what a journal is, basically. It's not a diary. Not a diary, apparently. It might help to get thoughts down. Maybe it'll free my mind. So I'm guessing my mind was probably feeling quite stuck at that time. I don't know if it'll work, as I worry someone may find it and read it. That's always a worry. I remember one time at work, someone left their diary like about on a position, and we didn't read it. I think we all understood not to read it. And the reason why we knew it was a diary, like, we flicked through it, and then once we realized it was a diary, I think we all respected that. 2 days later, 31st of March 2017, already missed one day. The Skype interview with LCC went well, and I got an offer. So LCC, I think, is London College of Communication. So I was going to do design, and then didn't get into any of them. But I remember this guy, I remember not really knowing if the interview was real. Like, I don't know why I didn't trust the call. And then he was just like this guy that didn't seem creative whatsoever. And I think I was doing a design course, and I remember being like, he just seemed like a bus driver to me. I'm not saying bus drivers can't be creative, but like at the time, that was my assumption. Already missed one day. The Skype interview with LCC went well, and I got an offer, although it hasn't come through on UCAS yet. And the guy interviewing me looked like a bus driver. So maybe it's all fake. I don't know why I just assumed that because he looked like a bus driver, he wasn't associated with the university. What do bus drivers even look like? I think before I wasn't living in London, so I never really took the bus. So I had this vision of like older, like bald man as a bus driver, and that's what he was. So that was the connection I made. No, it can't be fake. So I came to my senses. Spent most of the day revising, sticking to my schedule of maths in the morning, economics after lunch, and D1 after a tea break. I don't know what that is. Although I was tired for some reason, so at 3 I stopped and did art. I find it very hard to stick to schedules and hope in the future my life isn't controlled by a schedule. But everyone's life is sort of, well, I guess it's your own schedule, isn't it? Schedule is American apparently. Schedule is English. I was serving these like 2 people at work, and I remember saying like, oh, if you do this, like it'll be, if you combine your items, it's cheaper in the cloakroom. And I was just like, oh, if you have less items, then it's cheaper. And then I corrected myself. I was like, fewer. And then they laughed, and they were like, oh, we like that correction. And I was like, yeah, my dad always like told me fewer is for like numbers of things and less is for like water, specifically only water. Oh, is that even possible? So at the time I wasn't sure. When I was moving into this area, I went for a walk nearby, and there was this American car dealership, and they had a Hummer outside, they had a Mustang outside, and they had some other cars, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Anyway, I do really like American cars. I feel like they are underrated. The comfort, I quite like a car that feels like quite boaty. I remember one time we went on holiday to America, and we were driving a Cadillac. My dad drove a Cadillac, and that felt very boaty. But I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I feel like a car doesn't have to feel like tight to the road and sharp. Like, you can have different cars for that. So I do quite like American cars. I do want one at some point. It would be quite nice. Was it a Chrysler we had actually? No, I think it was a Cadillac. I wanted to end this episode with a section on, so this book is called Chromophobia. It's sort of color theory. With this paragraph: intelligent beings have a language represented by articulate sounds. Organized beings, like all animals and vegetables, express themselves by cries or forms, contour or carriage. Inorganic nature has only the language of color. It is by color alone that a certain stone tells us it is a sapphire or an emerald. Color, then, is the peculiar characteristic of the lower forms of nature. While drawing becomes the medium of expression, more and more dominant the higher we rise in the scale of being. Thank you for listening.